Thank you. We have read through the submissions provided prior to the hearing, and we have listened to the submissions made during the hearing by counsel from the Metropolitan Police, Miss Oliver, Miss McLaughlin from Ealing Council Environmental Health, who supports the police application, Miss Claver for the premises licence holder, Mr. Panchal, the premise licence agent, and Mr. Kushal Shah, the premise licence holder and designated premises supervisor, and his business partner, Mr. Jitesh Hilali. We have also viewed the 4 clips of footage provided by the Metropolitan Police. The police made this application for review, seeking a suspension of the licence on the grounds of prevention of crime and disorder and the prevention of public nuisance licensing objectives. In summary, Miss Oliver submitted that because Mr. Shah allowed the business to be opened outside the Step 2 COVID regulations, and that Mr. Shah purchased alcohol for his business partner, Mr. Jitesh Hilali, who was also at the premises at the relevant time. Mr. Kushal Shah and the DPS present at the time at the premises allowed his business partner to drink alcohol with his friend, now the victim of an assault at the premises. The victim was intoxicated when he left the premises. An attack took place shortly after he left the victim, leaving in a fatal condition, and we are told that he is stable and in an induced coma at hospital. Miss Oliver refers us to the inconsistency in what Mr. Kushal Shah told officers about what was occurring at the premises and what is evidence from the CCTV. In summary, Miss Clover, for the premise licence holder and DPS, accepts on behalf of the DPS that he was not honest with his explanation of activities at the premises to the officers, and he has apologised for this. Mr. Shah explained that he himself purchased the alcohol for his business partner, Mr. Hilali, and he was present at the premises when the alcohol was consumed by the victim and Mr. Hilali. Ms. Clover also breaks down 3 different activities that she says were happening at the premises on that evening, namely those that were waiting for deliveries, those that were seated, eating and drinking, which is accepted to be contrary to what was agreed with Miss McLaughlin and Mr. Kushal Shah, and then Mr. Hilali and the victim seated together for drinks. However, the footage shows the victim standing around others present within the premises at the table with food and drink. We have also considered Miss Clover's extensive submissions on her interpretation of the requirements to be considered for an expedited review at this interim stage. And she says that we as a panel need to consider in making this decision, and we will not repeat them here again. Ms. Clover has invited us to accept a voluntary closure of the premises up to the 17th of May, 2021. And Mr. Shah, through Mr. Panchal, has clarified that the voluntary closure be in place until the review hearing. Ms. McLaughlin has also made representations today in addition to what she has provided in writing. Ms. McLaughlin provides us with a timeline of her communication with Mr. Kushal Shah and maintains that the space identified as the terrace does not, in her view, permit the use of this area. We note that this is not agreed by Mr. Kushal Shah, and Ms. McLaughlin supports the review application for the suspension of the licence at this interim stage. In reaching our decision, we have had regard to the Crown's own statement of licensing policy, together with statutory guidance under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, April 2018, and in particular, Part 12, which deals with the summary reviews, and the Section 53A/C Licensing Act 2003 Summary Review Guidance. We do recognise the review proceedings set out in the Licensing Act 2003 represent a key protection for the community when problems associated with crime and disorder, public safety, public nuisance, or the protection of children from harm are occurring. We are aware of the range of powers to consider and establish what is appropriate at this interim stage for the promotion of the licensing objectives. In making this decision, we are aware that we need to do so as far as possible, seek to establish the cause and causes of the concerns which representations identify by all those present. We find that a suspension is the most appropriate and proportionate step to take, as we have no confidence in the ability of the licensee to promote the crime and disorder strand of the licensing objectives. For this reason, the DPS, Mr. Kushal Shah himself, the reason for this are that the DPS, Mr. Shah himself, purchased the alcohol for his business partner, Mr. Hilali. Mr. Shah was present at the premises when his partner was drinking alcohol with the victim. Mr. Shah would have been aware of what was happening and the extent of the drinking, as can be seen when the victim and Mr. Jitesh Hilali leave the premises, clearly unsteady on their feet. And shortly after leaving the premises, the victim is attached, leaving him with fatal injuries. Mr. Kushal Shah has shown a disregard to his own assurances to Ms. McLaughlin that the terrace will remain closed until the 17th of May, when we enter step 3. Mr. Shah lied to the officers when they made inquiries about what was happening at the premises to avoid being issued with a fine for environmental health. Therefore, we will be suspending the license immediately until the full review hearing. The full review hearing, we understand, falls on a date so that this can be noted by all present. Can we just have confirmation of the date? I believe it will be the Wednesday, the 26th of May.
Yes, that's the date. It has to be held. That's the latest date it can be held on.
I obviously, we won't explore that date here and now, but that's the date that's being proposed, and obviously all parties can discuss that in another platform. Thank you very much. That concludes the meeting. Thank you very much for your patience.